Hello, traders. Great to be with you again. It's Jeffrey from Strategic Day Traders, and we've got another great week to review. I hope everyone had a good week. It's a little bit slower in the summertime, but nevertheless, we had some great calls, and I'm going to review how we did this week and also show you what strategy I am using. I'll recap that as well as give you a quick rundown of what last week's news was and what this week's coming up news is going to be. So as always, all the information provided here is for educational purposes only and not an offer or a recommendation to trade futures, stocks, options, or Forex. So let's go ahead and dive into the strategy. As a reminder for all of you, this is what the typical chart I use for Forex and sometimes gold and oil only. I don't use this for indexes, and what I am looking for is this nice parabolic movement from this channel, the envelope, or we call it the envelope or channel that we get from the Lux Algo set of indicators. And when we see an outside movement, particularly an outside bar, we always look for it to move to the opposite side. Now, ideally, we're looking for the bars to go all the way outside, but if they get close to the edge of one of the sides of the channel, and we have a supply or demand zone, just like this demand zone right over here, and we see that we are overbought or oversold, depending on the side, at the same time, that is going to be an indication to take a trade, okay? So just as a review, we start on a 30-minute chart. We're looking for trades that are going to be able to show a location for entry within the first couple of hours after I do my analysis, release the pairs that I can really reliably feel like I have a bias long or short over the next 12 to 24 hours. If we are fortunate enough to get in and a nice pullback before the Asian and the London sessions, we'll jump in. Sometimes we'll go in at market. All that comes from a little bit of experience. And as many of you know that have been trading with me for a while, we like to look at the supply and demand zones, and we follow the linear regression moving average as well. So we're waiting for price to move to the edge of the parabolic channel, either the lower edge or the upper edge. So naturally, if we're looking for a long, we're going to wait until we get a movement down to either outside the bar or close to the edge at the same time that we see an overbought or an oversold condition. Obviously, if we're looking for a long, we're looking for an oversold condition, just like we see it over here. And then we can wait until we get a bounce off of a zone if we have one, or a cross over the linear regression moving average and either a close right on the opposite side, and then we'll get in. So the ideal entry for this particular trade, and this is one that we took, was right over here, and we rode it all the way up until we got into a supply zone that looked like it held pretty strongly right over here. Now, as far as exits go, we always look for an exit based on a supply and demand zone or the opposite edge, or sometimes if we're getting into the afternoon of the following day, we'll just look to trail a runner at 20 or 30 pips if it's a slow mover and be happy with that. Alrighty, let us now jump in. So last week we had a ton of news, and this is all highly impactful news, red folder news, okay? In the U.S., we had inflation news. We had interest rate monetary policy news over in the New Zealand and inflation news in Australia. More inflation news in the middle of the week from the U.S. as well as retail sales. So we had a real turnaround in the market after 2 weeks ago of a big sell-off. We had some positive news, and the market is always jumping on extremely positive news in a presidential election year, and so that fuels strength in the dollar or weakness in the dollar, and that is what gives us a great direction for predicting our currency pairs, along with the movement, as well as a number of other factors that I use. Now, here's what we were looking at. On the 11th, we didn't have a chance to get in. It was completely flat. So, as I mentioned in our Telegram channel, there were no trades on the 11th, but on the 12th, we had a couple of small ones for a total of 129 pips. On the 13th, also a little bit slower, then things picked up a little bit by the time we got to Thursday night's results, for a total for the entire week of just 4 days of trading, and not that many calls each day. Those of you who have been with me for a little while now know that sometimes we have 6 or more pairs almost every single day that I feel reliably strong about calling, but we still yielded a total of 450 pips, first targets over 350. And if you are just getting used to trading Forex and you are in micro lots of 0.01, you had a few bucks that you banked. But if you were starting to move into mini lots, 0.1 lots, this is what you banked. A full lot size is a $100,000 account at the least, but maybe some of you are trading with $50,000 prop firm size accounts, and trading a half a lot is reasonable. And obviously, you know, we customize our lot size depending on the pair, so we are rounding this off to 0.5 for all of the trades, but sometimes your lot size will be a little different. But you easily netted a couple of grand last week just following the direction. Now, sometimes we got in right at market. Sometimes we waited for a pullback. Sometimes we didn't get in at all until almost 12 hours after I posted the pairs. And then we saw huge directional movement. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And here is the NinjaTrader. Hold on, let's move this so I can move those, and we'll put this right there. So these are the trades that I posted on Thursday evening to play out for the next 12 to 24 hours. This is Thursday evening Eastern Time at 7 p.m. And as you can see, we had the pound yen, the pound franc, the Aussie yen, the Aussie franc, the US yen, the US franc, and the Aussie franc. So those were the big pairs that we knew that we were going to have some movement in. And if we look at the 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we were flat through the Sydney session, through the Tokyo session. We got a pullback in the London session that we were looking for, and so by 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, we were all the way down at the outside edge of our channel, looking to get in, and then rode this up. Now, things do slow up on Friday afternoon, so I was happy to take profit when we hit this strong supply zone right over here, and we were out for the day for a total of almost 70 pips. On the pound franc, same thing, flat completely through the night. But as we came down in the early morning, with plenty of time to grab this trade, you could have gotten in right over here at this strong demand zone. And for me, I might not wait until it crosses the linear regression moving average to get in, because I like a tighter stop. So I have a little bit higher risk tolerance. No reason why you couldn't have waited to get in right over here as a guarantee, because it certainly could have gone down further and given you an even better entry. But this much time away from it being oversold, I was happy to get in over here. And same thing, rode it right up until the just after lunchtime Eastern and got right out. If we look at the Aussie yen, we had the same movement. Typically, when we have longs as a call, they'll all move in somewhat similar fashion. Same thing with the shorts. The Aussie franc was a nice mover when we got in right over here, also about 8 a.m. U.S. time on the East Coast. We had a nice movement straight up through here. And the pound yen, pound franc, and the Aussie franc all making the same moves, okay? So as you can see, sometimes we don't get in immediately after. If we don't see a nice pullback within the first 2 hours, there is got to be really, really strong supply and demand and an indication to get in. If we had a pullback over here within the first 2 hours and we were already oversold, then we might have thought about getting in. But we were right around here and we were nowhere near being oversold to take the long, okay? We really like to wait until that oversold condition, okay? These are key indicators to look for. And now let's take a look at where we're at coming into the week. We are, let's see, looking at an absolutely slow Monday, no news globally whatsoever, okay? So I'm waiting for a little bit more input to see whether or not we have anything to call for some posts this evening, but it's a pretty flat day and the markets are going to be flat. However, on Tuesday, we've got some Canadian inflation news. Wednesday will be a little quiet. This is not an FOMC meeting in the U.S., it is the publication of the minutes from 2 weeks ago. Once in a while, we see a little bit of interesting clarity there. So certainly at 2 p.m., for those of you that are trading indexes, certainly be cautious. You can sometimes see a bump or a little bit of a movement over there. However, as we get into Thursday, in the Eastern U.S. overnight session, we're going to get some Eurozone manufacturing news, and then same thing, more manufacturing news from Great Britain. But then we'll see U.S. claims, and then U.S. inflation and retail sales will be coming in. Now, at the end of the week next week, we have a lot of the Fed governors out at economic conferences in Jackson Hole. That's a summertime symposium that happens every single year. So we'll have Powell speaking out there, and there may be other speakers that will get on the schedule between now and then. So Friday may be somewhat impactful when the Fed members speak. That is usually a very interesting and worthwhile time to listen to, because they give indication and clarity, and the market has already baked in a interest rate cut for September, but this may give a little clarity to the amount of the cut and whether or not they're anticipating another 1 or 2 cuts, okay? So inflation and interest rates are the name of the day, and as you know, when the inflation rate changes, that's a dramatic impact on the dollar, and that affects all of our global currencies. So that's it, traders. That's a nice quick recap for everything. If you have any questions, feel free to join, to head over to strategicdaytraders.com. You'll get a little bit more information there. If you want to become a member and join and receive these, my analysis of the currency pairs in the evening and on East Coast time, to place trades that evening or have it ready for you for the early morning session before 8 a.m., then go ahead and just click join and you'll get all the information there. You can shoot me a message and email me at any time at Jeffrey@strategicdaytraders.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please click like and subscribe as I slowly build and grow this channel. And as we do that, we will be looking into adding more trade indications, potentially more pairs to add, looking into the day going forward in the morning. But right now, these are working beautifully, and many of you have had good luck placing some of these trades. So, pleasure sharing all of this with you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.